This woman got pregnant unknowingly for her stepson, and what happened next will shock the world. This is the story of Jumoke, who was married for 19 years without a child. Seeing that she was childless for 19 years after she got married to her husband Femi, and curious to establish whether she was indeed barren, she decided to put her fertility to test with the young man that was staying with them, not knowing that the young man in question is the biological son of her husband. It was a combination of a game of deceit between the couples, as Femi had brought in a young man one day and introduced him to Jumoke as one of his relatives from the village. Jumoke revealed how their relationship, which was once the envy of many, became laced with frustration, hate and abuse, such that neighbors and friends became peacemakers before the marriage was dissolved. In a shaky voice, Jumoke recalled that with assault, name-calling, abuse and starvation, the past 15 years had been the worst of her life simply because they didn't have a child. Jumoke noted that it got to a point where she had asked herself if she was still living with the same man that she married. He suddenly became a beast, calling Jumoke barren, harlot and useless just because she couldn't take him. This she narrated as she fought back tears. He was my best friend before we got married. We were ready to have children so quickly as possible so we could move on. But after 5 years and more, there was nothing. I didn't take him, so I became worried. We went for several tests, but we were told I had no problem. But my husband had low sperm count and he needed to regulate his diet, which he did, but nothing changed. Because he is the only son, his mother had already become hostile to me, visiting regularly from the village while my husband also joined her in frustrating me. Before then, I visited places my faith would ordinarily not permit to, because all I wanted was a child, yet nothing came out of it. That was how I started living alone. I cried daily, but that didn't bring any succor. One day, I got an idea and decided to test my fertility with another man. I realized that would be adultery of the highest order, but I also felt it would be lesser sin if it was with my husband's relative who was staying with us. I drew the young man closer and made him my best friend since my husband had stopped making love to me for close to 7 months. Luring Godwin, my husband's relative, to start sleeping with me was a difficult decision, but I was also considering my age. I had never cheated on my husband before, but I had reached the limit of my endurance and the circumstances around me was not in my favor. I then concluded that I would test my fertility through Godwin, my husband's relative. I had seen Godwin's crotch during house cleaning, so I realized his manhood was big enough to give me satisfaction, though he was only about 17 years old. I started admiring him anytime my husband went to work. I would summon courage and make advances to him, drawing him closer to me with petty items. In no time, he succumbed and we started having sex, though he was not too perfect because he had not been into it before, but I was teaching him. I also warned him never to reveal it and threatened to kill him if he opened up to anybody. We progressed in that direction, especially during my ovulation period. In no distant time, he was able to impregnate me. I missed my period 3 months after. I was very happy that the plan to test my fertility worked and that what my husband could not do for years, Godwin did within a short time. One fortunate thing was that Godwin himself did not know that he was responsible for it. Unfortunately for me, I didn't know that Godwin was actually the biological son of my husband. The entire family hid it from me so that I would not victimize him. A twist had occurred in the matter when Godwin secured admission into the College of Education and was traveling to commence registration when he had an accident that claimed his life. During his burial, I did not attend because I was not strong enough to travel to the village as I was heavily pregnant. But after his burial, I noticed that my husband was sad and affected by Godwin's untimely death. He was affected psychologically so much it almost cost him his job. He ceased to be a happy man even when I delivered a baby boy for him. I made several attempts to discuss with him about the future of our newborn baby, but it never interested him because deep down inside him, he knew he was not responsible for the pregnancy and was only pretending. One morning, my husband abruptly woke me up and broke down in tears, but he was unable to tell me the cause of his misery. After about 40 minutes later, he was calm enough to tell me why he was crying. He started by apologizing to me for not telling me from day one that late Godwin was actually his biological son. He said that while growing up many years ago, he had an affair with a girl which resulted in pregnancy and the girl refused to abort it. She gave birth to Godwin and his mother brought him up. So when he met me and I showed serious dislike for any man who already had a child out of wedlock, He decided to hide it from me in order not to lose me. He said he didn't know how to tell me about it all these years. He said he had wanted to reject the pregnancy, but his parents took responsibility while he proceeded with his studies. He said that when he started working after his studies, he decided that the boy should come and stay with us so that I could train him, but he hid the true identity from me to avoid victimization. My husband again burst into tears that the late Godwin was his only son and that he knew fully well that he was not responsible for my pregnancy. He pleaded with me to tell him the true father of the newborn baby because we did not engage in any lovemaking in the period preceding the pregnancy. I realized at that point that lying would further complicate the situation, so I decided to come clean. I burst into tears and cried uncontrollably. I found it difficult to explain to him since he had been playing with me at that late hour. I knelt down before him in tears and confessed to him that the late Godwin, his own son, was the father of my newborn baby. I pleaded with him to forgive me for all my sins, that it was an attempt to save my marriage and bear a child for him. And I thought that rather than going outside, I should test my fertility with his relation to know whether the fault was from me or from him. I pleaded with him to forgive me all my sins, saying that I took the course of action to protect the marriage, and the consolation is that the new baby boy will replace his son since it is his late son's blood. Initially, my husband's reaction was anger, as he said he could not imagine his son sleeping with his own wife to the point of impregnating her, and his wife allowing such to happen under the same roof. Since then, our mutual life has not remained the same, as our previous cat and dog relationship deteriorated further. My husband kept emaciating. He hardly talked and was not excited about the new baby. We hardly talked and he hardly responded to my conversations. At a point, his attitude really worried me, so I ran out of the house to one of my uncle's house, who also stays in town. 2 days after I left, my husband slept and died in his sleep. After his sudden death, his people accused me of being responsible for his death and threatened to kill me. I became confused. I knew I didn't deserve to be alive again, so I contemplated suicide because my effort to give my husband a child had ruined my life, and until this day, I still live with the regret. This is my story, and I hope this will serve as a lesson to other women out there to be very cautious in taking certain decisions, and I hope also men will learn to be very open to their spouses. Because if my husband had opened up to me, I wouldn't have made the mistake of engaging myself with his son. So guys, I hope you watched this video to the very end. If you did, kindly do well to drop your honest comments in the comment section. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and share our content. Thank you.